Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Sayantee Jana from IIT Hyderabad. On behalf of the Program Committee of the IDWSDS, I wholeheartedly welcome all of you to the International Day of Women in Statistics and Data Science 2023, which is a 24-hour online around the world conference organized by the Caucus for Women in Statistics and Data Science, CWS. I'm extremely delighted that all of you have decided to be part of the celebration today. Particularly, this session is sponsored by the CWS and IISA, which is the Indian International Statistical Association. This session is a career panel in statistics and data science spanning across for careers spanning across academia, government, and different industries. I earnestly thank all of our panelists who have taken time out of their extremely busy schedule to be part of this panel. Furthermore, we are incredibly honored to have with us today an eminent statistician from the industry who have been instrumental in spearheading the global product development operations at Pfizer India. So I welcome and introduce to you Dr. Devjit বিশ্বাস, Vice President and Head of Development Operations for Pfizer Healthcare India Private Limited. He heads the global biometrics and data management for Pfizer R&D in India and Philippines. With a career spanning over 22 years, he has contributed as a statistician, and he is also a statistician turned senior leader who played a key role in setting up the Pfizer India operations and continues to support the immense growth of the team and the pharmaceutical research in India. He has worked across US, India, and Europe and contributed to multiple regulatory submissions. He is the founder of the Indian Association for Statistics in Clinical Trials, IASCT, and is currently the president of the IISA India chapter. For me, whenever the going gets tough, there are few people in this world I remember to keep myself motivated. And Dr. Devjit বিশ্বাস is one of them. So, I would like to request Dr. বিশ্বাস to inaugurate the session for us.
Thank you very much, Shanti, for the very kind introduction. Firstly, let me wish you all a great International Day of Women in Statistics and Data Science. This day is to celebrate women who are already working as statisticians and data scientists, but also encourage others to join this very vibrant community. In that regard, I'm very happy to be invited to open this career panel on opportunities in academia, government, and industry. Whether you identify as a statistician or a data scientist or both, I think all of you will agree that it is a great time to be in this domain. I come from the pharmaceutical industry, where statisticians and data scientists contribute across the drug discovery, development, and commercialization pathway. And there are similar opportunities elsewhere in other industries as well. There are many challenging problems to deal with, and the methodologic and computational tools at our disposal are increasing, at a rapid pace. Over the last few decades, while there has been some progress in building a diverse workforce of statisticians and data scientists, we can always do more. This is true across industries. We need to foster diversity and inclusion by taking steps to encourage women to pursue careers in quantitative sciences, specifically statistics, data science, computer science, and so on. Of course, we also need to increase representation of women in leadership positions and do our best to create inclusive and enabling work environments. So to address the first point, I think today's panel should be a really interesting one. With that, I will thank you, Shanti, again, and hand it over back to you.
Thank you so much for your encouraging words, and thank you. We cannot really thank you enough for being here with us to be part of the celebration. So without further ado, let's get the panel started. So I hand it over to our moderators today.
Thank you, Dr. Sayantee ma'am and Dr. Devjit Biswas for your valuable words. We'll start the panel discussion by introducing the panel members and the moderators. So a very good afternoon to everyone. My name is Supriya and I am a first year MTech student in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at Indian Institute of Technology, Hyderabad. My academic background is in mathematics and I wish to work in the domains of Bayesian statistics and machine learning. And the other moderator for this session would be Mavely. So Mavely, you can introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm an aspiring statistician pursuing my BSc in Mathematics and Statistics in Mount Carmel College, Bangalore. I'm an inspired scholar and currently working on spatio-temporal modeling of COVID-19 in Mumbai. And as one of the organizers of the Bangalore chapter of Our Ladies, I'm passionate about helping others learn and use R. Now over to Supriya.
Okay, thank you, Mavely. Now I'll start with the introduction of our panel members. Our first panel member is Ms. Monami Mitra. Ms. Mitra is currently working as director in the Price Statistics Division, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, MOSPI. She is primarily responsible for work related to the Consumer Price Index and the International Comparison Program. She belongs to the 2010 batch of Indian Statistical Service, and she has done her graduation from St. Xavier's College, Kolkata, and completed her master's in statistics from the University of Calcutta. She has an experience of over a decade working in MOSPI and has dealt with NSS surveys like household consumption expenditure, social consumption surveys on health and education, and unincorporated enterprise services. Maybe you can.
Thank you, Shukriya, for the kind introduction. So I look forward to engage in conversation with all the panelists. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry about the internet connection. Our second panel member is Mr. Pallab Bhattacharya. Mr. Pallab is currently working deputy to the head of analytics for Standard Chartered Bank, Singapore, taking care of retail banking analytics, insights, and campaign management while managing a team of 12 analysts across Singapore and India. His prior experience includes working with Fullerton Financial Holdings and Barclays Bank in India. He holds a master's degree in statistics and has comprehensive experience in credit card, personal loans, and credit risk analytics in industries relating to banking, insurance, financial services, and market research sectors. He has been conferred with CEO Award 3 times for Outstanding Real-Time Analytics Solutions and also for Best Analytics Use Case by Asian.
Our third panel member is Dr. Pallavi Basu. Dr. Basu is currently working as an assistant professor in the operations management area at ISB Hyderabad. Her research interests include application of statistics in finance, marketing, and other disciplines, large-scale multiple testing, and topics on causal inference. She is a member of the American Statistical Association, Institute of Mathematical Statistics, and International Indian Statistical Association. Dr. Basu received her PhD in Business Administration and Statistics from USC Marshall School of Business. She was a postdoctoral fellow at Tel Aviv University and has completed her undergraduate and master's studies in statistics from Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata.
Before we begin today's panel discussion, we urge the audience members to introduce themselves with their name and affiliation in the chat box. Feel free to post your questions in the chat box, which we'll be taking at the end of today's session. We now begin our panel discussion. For our first question, I would like to ask Ms. Monami ma'am, why did you choose to study data science or statistics?
Okay, for me, selecting statistics, I started studying statistics from my 10+2 boards actually. So I selected it as an optional subject just out of my love for numbers. I love numbers, be it telephone number, be it data, be it anything. I just love them. So I started because of that. And then it was like I had really good teachers throughout my school, college, universities. So that was a very big inspiration, which led me to pursue this subject as for my honors, then for post graduation. So, actually, what happened was when I was studying statistics during graduation and all, so I became aware of the numerous opportunities which are lying ahead of me. So it is actually applicable in all field, and I'm sure all of you will agree with me here. So we talk about chances in our daily lives, right? So basically, we are calculating probabilities in our mind somewhere. So it's like we apply this discipline of science everywhere without knowing. So there is data everywhere. So you just need to study, analyze, and create a story out of it. And so many such stories are worth telling. So during my post-graduation days, we actually had detailed sessions on official statistics prevalent in the country, internationally. So uh, those were very thought-provoking and illuminating to me. And as a result, I started digging deep into the compilation of GDP, inflation, discussing those details about poverty line estimates, getting the unemployment rates and all. So um, that was a fascinating area for me, and hence I decided to continue with this subject for my future career or studies and everything. So that's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you for the wonderful answer, ma'am. I'm very sure that a lot of us have similar stories. On to our next question. This question is for Mr. Pallab sir. Why did you choose the career you're currently doing?
Oh no, why I did it sometimes I think. But yeah, firstly, actually, I didn't, couldn't congratulate everyone for the International Day of, Women in Statistics and Data Science. So I congratulate all of you. And secondly, thanks for your kind introduction as well, Maybe. So, why I chose this is because, so see, I mean, my father has been with banks for over 30 years. So somewhat the interest came from that time itself. So my path has been quite a journey actually. So although I was quite fascinated with how different financial products work, and as well as the data which is actually elemental to it. But before diving to the banking analytics journey, I spent some time in market research as well as credit rating as well. So when I joined the first credit rating company as my first career option, so I was quite interested in looking at different data, their models, how it works, and the impact of it. Because at that time I was working with one of the subsidiary of Moody's, right? So the immense impact of credit rating to any firm, any country, and even for a particular let's say stock index, the immense impact it has on them is quite fascinating. And what I also that actually started my interest within. And then from there, when I transitioned into banking, what I realized is it's actually a perfect blend, right? So we have a lot of financial data available in the bank. It's just how you want to actually summarize them, tell a story, and come up with some kind of insights which can be acted upon, right? And then from there towards the implementation of the same, right? So we do. I mean, I'm sure must have received some of the other communication from the bank about promotions and campaigns, right? So when we do that, right, we actually also are quite fascinated about how different customer is actually how customers are different from each one of them, and how we can sort of engage them better by doing something, right? So I think that's pretty much what interests me, and have been that has been actually continually coming up and I'm ongoing with the kind of work that I'm doing here. So yeah, I think that's pretty much from my side why I chose this and why I'm continuing on this particular role.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your viewpoint. The next question is directed to Dr. Basu. Ma'am, what does the career trajectory look like in your current job?
Thank you, Supriya. So I'm going to talk about my job at ISB, but it's going to be very much similar to the situation in IITs where Sayantee works, and also IISCRs and IIMs. Sayantee, if I'm missing some institution, you can put down in the chat. So I don't always think about other institutions in my day-to-day life. So I'm thinking of typically if you're doing like an MS and PhD in statistics, so from there on, you can do a postdoc, you may not do a postdoc. Typically, it's a good idea to have a little bit exposure to some topics, which is kind of complementary to your PhD topic. But once you're done through that stage, an academic job typically involves is where you start as an assistant professor, and you spend between, I don't know, 5 to 7 years as an assistant professor, and then you go through the ranks, go through an associate professor and a full professor. And of course, an academic job involves a combination of teaching, research, and admin. So typically, if you're a junior faculty in many places, well, in some places it might be different, but in many places, mostly you focus on your teaching and research, almost half. And then as you go up the ranks, you kind of do about 1/3 each, maybe, in each of these categories. I don't know if this was a question that you were looking for very specifically, but Supriya, is this
No, ma'am,
what you
you've
had?
covered it. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay. So this is a broad starting point. It's a very specific answer. Yeah, and we'll talk more. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So thank you, ma'am, for your informative answer. The next question is for Mr. Pallab. Sir, how does a typical workday look like for you?
Yeah, I think it's a quite interesting question. So, see, basically, in any banking analytics, company, right? It would be a mix of understanding the business or the risk, whichever vertical a person is actually working on from the analytics perspective, and also, to look for solutions which will actually definitely come through data and actionable insights, right? So, if I just talk about myself, right? So, my morning will definitely start with planning the day. So at this particular juncture, I will try to schedule my meetings, follow-ups, maybe plan some workshops if required. I mean, we do a lot of workshop actually in the bank. So, and also I need to actually make sure I know what needs to be delivered or prioritized for a particular day, right? And then eventually I will definitely, so we have a lot of dashboards actually created by the teams, the different teams, basically reporting teams and all. So we will actually, usually I look at those, look at the KPIs, the trends, actually how it is performing for the different products that I am responsible for. Then if there is any trend which I can figure out from those reports or the dashboards, I will definitely have to engage with the business partners. I will have to tell them about, if this is something which I've observed. So maybe you can, if you can give me some justification, or if you need some help in terms of analyzing it better. So that would also, constitute the next part of the day. But I mean, essentially at every juncture, at every point, right, you have to have maybe a thinking hat or a detective hat always, and you have to work closely with different teams and stakeholders, and really need to get into the bottom of the things, right? So that's how it is. And then the other part of the day would actually be about delivering stuff. So where we might need to do some kind of coding, or you have to come up with some kind of actionable insights, or we might need to brainstorm and maybe craft plans to tackle business problems. So that would be the typical, the next half of the day would look like. So for this part, right, I will definitely use my statistical skills, and some of the data sets that I have been working on, how to actually, maybe enrich a particular result which I can see. So and come up with the actionable insights and solutions, right? So for the business. So and then the end objective for us would be actually to improve customer experience, reduce risks for the bank. It can be credit, market, or operational risk, enable revenue, because that's what we all work for, and obviously help the bank grow. So that's how it usually stands out. Meetings and discussions, I'll just want to touch upon that. Those actually constitute the biggest part of my day at my level. And basically, where I need to actually bounce up ideas to the stakeholders, and wherever there is some challenges, they will also call upon us, and get our help in terms of help and recommendation both. So and definitely sometime I'll definitely keep for personal development, which is very much necessary, and I'm sure for any industry it is actually becoming even more relevant and important, right? So that will keep me updated with the latest trends, the latest technologies, and also as you know, this particular domain is advancing so fast that whatever you actually study or whatever you learn yesterday, it will become stale today and tomorrow, right? So that's why we need to actually be constantly updated with the trends and techniques, algorithms, and how to actually keep ourselves and the bank stay ahead of the competition, right? So it's actually, this is how I will answer this. So but at the end of the day, we'll actually I should really feel rewarding in myself, that okay, how I'm spending my day, how I'm actually contributing to the business, and reducing risks, as I told. So that's how it is. Actually, it's a mix of all these, how I actually spend a typical day at my work. Not sure if it answers the question.
It's a wonderful answer, sir. Thank you for answering the question. Next, we'll be moving on to Dr. Pallavi ma'am. The question for you is, what kind of researchers or professionals are your main collaborators on statistical projects? And could you tell us about how your day is divided between statistics, project planning, administration, and management?
Okay, so that's, I think, two questions. So, all right. So collaborator wise, so since I'm a little bit more, I mean, I don't know how many of you agree, but I'm sort of mid-early career. So in that context, I do not have a direct industry or a government collaborator, but that's something obviously in the longer goal that's always useful. So currently my collaborators do involve experts in the statistical community. Because also there's this long learning curve that do exist. You do benefit by interacting and collaborating with people who have been like stalwarts in their field. So that's something continued from my PhD, postdoc, and early career. But also I've started collaborating with people from other domains. So these are experts in finance or marketing. So, and because I'm in the business school, I mentioned these, and this is what I do. But of course, in the stats community, you can also collaborate with biostatisticians, social scientists, agricultural scientists. And these are fascinating projects, very enjoyable, a lot of fun, a lot of ways to contribute and to contribute your expertise to these areas. So these are primarily my current collaborators, but yeah, in the long run, I do have thoughts about collaborating directly with industry and and government projects. But they're also very protective about their data often, and often they will require you to enroll you in their book roll or payroll, whatever it is. And also it's kind of a little bit harder to publish using those data because they're kind of private to their organization. So in the early career, it's a tricky business to collaborate with those people, but definitely with scientists in other areas are great collaborators that you can have. About how I divide my time. So at ISB, it's a little different. We have a little compact teaching schedule, but roughly in all places, I think it's very similar. About 1/3 of your time will go to your teaching services, or teaching rather. And then, 1/3 of the year you're basically teaching in some either condensed way or a sparsed out way. But then remaining of the time can be a little different based on where you work. And here is a little bit where being a woman academician might be a little different than than your colleagues, because we often get thrown into basically services that require to have women members. Like we have at ISB, we have an honor code committee, discipline committee, sexual harassment committees. All these committees require women representations, and often there are not enough women faculty in the organization. So you basically get kind of pushed into these committees, and these are time consuming, and these are mentally challenging. So that's something like, as a cautionary note, you should try to stay away, even though you might feel like you're doing a lot of service, but it's basically emptying your CV, nothing else. Okay. But yeah, I mean, basically I try to spend like about 60% of my time thinking about research, and it also research is kind of long projects. In this case, my projects would take typically 2 to 3 years since it's starting, and it takes a lot of time to think in the beginning, to find questions that are interesting, relevant, and also can be solvable, which requires challenging approaches, which is challenging basically, and requires modern approaches and thinking. So yeah, so I try to spend as much as time as possible in research, either short-run projects or long-term projects. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am, for your wonderful answer. The next question is directed to Miss Monami Mitra, ma'am. Ma'am, who are the main beneficiaries of your work?
Yes, so as Supriya, you have already mentioned in my introduction that I'm working for the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. So right now, my work is to release the Consumer Price Index and inflation numbers, which I am sure all of you are aware of, that it is one of the most important macroeconomic indicator in the country. So the Indian CPI that we release, it's one of the most comprehensive and the quickest across the globe. So we release it within the 12 days of a month. So it's a release with a lag of 12 days. So right now, actually today, we are finalizing the Consumer Price Index for the month of September 2023. And it is a completely indigenous product of MOSPI, that is the ministry, because the data collection, the price data collection for the item basket, it's done by the field operations division of ours, and the compilation, validation, everything is done by us in-house. So basically, if you would like to mention, if you'd like me to mention the beneficiaries, firstly, I would suggest that we, the consumers, all of us are consumers, so we are directly affected by CPI. So then since it measures the average change in prices, right? So we give about the inflation rates, which determines the purchasing power of consumers and their cost of living. So another important, and I may say that the most important user of our data is the Reserve Bank of India. So the central bank monitors the consumer price index, and it helps them to formulate the monetary policies. So we are in constant touch with the Reserve Bank of India monetary policy team. So we resolve all their queries, the issues that they throw at us regarding the trend, the price trend observed in different items and all. So I am sure if I give you an example, it will be very easy to connect. So all of us are aware of the tomato price rises over the last couple of months, right? So then when we had started showing that tomato inflation has hit about 300% year on year, so then government started importing tomatoes so from Nepal, and we got some stock delivered to northern India from the southern states. So all this this helps our numbers help in making these decisions, in formulating the policies. So overall, it's vital for all the policymakers, say in Ministry of Finance and Planning Commission. We are required to provide in terms some inputs for them, so that they can decipher the situation presently and formulate suitable economic policies and do budgetary allocations. So also say it's important to the businesses and investors, and it allows them to adjust their pricing strategies, make suitable production plans, investment decisions. And also we get the researchers, academics, economists, they are also working vividly on the CPI data. It is used for various studies and researches. And also, I can quote here the actually the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank. They are also checking the progress of India based on the doing a comparative analysis of the CPI data that we are releasing in terms of global standards. Now, on a broader horizon, we can also, apart from the CPI that MOSPI releases, that is, we do the retail inflation. So I can actually refer to two examples here. One is the Consumer Price Index for industrial workers, which is referred to by the government for calculation of the dearness allowance. And another is the agricultural labor and rural laborers. They have a separate consumer price index that is used to fix the wage rate, the minimum wage rate and all for MG, Narega and everything. That is done using the CPI. So I guess it's used by one and all. So I hope that answers your question, Supriya.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for the insights and examples, Mom. This next question is for all the panelists. And the question is, what are the different career options in your field right now? We will be starting off with Pallavi, ma'am, and we'll move on to the other panelists once fast.
Okay, so since I'm doing the academic part, I'm going to focus on the within the academic branch. So if you're working in stats academia, so well, stats with this advent of this data science and machine learning and all of these things. So you can be a statisticians in various kind of departments. One could be like a more traditional ISI style, with associated with the mathematics department, where you do basically theoretical statistics. You can be doing an applied statistics. You can be a Bayesian statistics, which could be a separate department entirely, or it could be associated with the applied stats group. So that's the traditional stats. Now, stats has also found its place in other, kind of intersection areas. You could be within the OR group, where you could be, basically solving OR statistical problems or OR challenges that arises in statistical questions. You could be within like a machine learning or data science group, which has been kind of a new thing that's arising. In the business school too, there are typically stats groups, which they could, like, for example, at ISB, it is within the group called operations management. So all the statistics teaching is basically managed by the operations management group. And so hence or otherwise, they need people to teach, and hence or otherwise, you can be one of those people where you can pursue your independent research and statistics within the OM group. It's also becoming a little common to collaborate with econometricians or the economics group with this very new age topic. Well, it's not very new to economics, but at least in the statistics domain, it's kind of more upcoming to study causal inference. So you could be doing causal inference, and which kind of overlaps with econometrics or the economics group. And then you could also be doing something intersection of everything, let's say, causal inference and machine learning. Okay, so then you need to understand statistics, econometrics, and machine learning as well, which is also very, very upcoming. So, it kind of spreads over, conventional stats groups, machine learning or data science groups, econometrics or economics groups, business school departments. And also, of course, there's this whole big field of biostat, which I don't often explore. And I think there are other people here who are, more proficient in the biostats thing. So, but yeah, that's also very prominent. Yeah.
Thank you for the insights, Mom. Now we'll be moving on to Pallab sir. Pallab sir, your insights.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, so I think with I'll just cover maybe by industry. So I mean, I just divide it into three the broad industries that we have currently. But obviously, it's not limited to this. It can be you can actually apply statistics, data science, machine learning everywhere today. right? So the first would be banking and insurance. Obviously, that's where I come from. So you can be a risk analyst there, right? So there are, I mean, banks and insurance companies, they're always looking out for good risk analysts who actually can actually assess and manage risks. The risks can be, credit, market, and operational risk. And then, if you become a risk analyst, you can actually do risk assessment by doing maybe a credit risk model or a market risk model or operational risk model as well. Then you can actually do maybe pure analysis without using models, but you can actually use other statistical methods to do it. The other part of it is definitely model development, where you can actually create mathematical and statistical model to predict, let's say, creditworthiness, right? Or let's say the chance of default, or let's say it can be both it can be linked to both market risk and credit risk, right? Then the other field which is also coming very prominently these days are regulatory compliance, right? So when we started, I don't get to hear a lot about it, but currently it's coming, right? So because for each, I mean, for the banking industry, compliance is, really critical. And the banks or the institutes which actually fail to comply with the regulators and the other, the other regulations like sanctions and all are charged fine heavily, right? So they are charged with, let's say, millions and millions of dollars of fines, right? So that's why regulatory compliance has also become a very budding, sector where they are actually looking for people. That's from the risk perspective. Now, if I go to the market side of it, or marketing side of it, there are data scientists, right? So where both bank and insurance are also looking for the data scientists who can actually do or come up with data-driven insights, right? And they should be able to do it on their own, because traditional analytics teams usually work on requests, right? So that request can be from any of the stakeholders of the business. But for a data scientist, it is essential to come up with your own, insights, actions, or trends, what you see, and how to actually, and what should the recommendation for business, right? So that is also something which is also very much in trend today. It can be also for so while talking about risk, right? I missed about talking fraud. So fraud risk is also something which is a very critical domain today, and people are looking for fraud risk analysts, where they can actually detect unusual patterns of transaction, or let's say it can be it can be a fraud of impersonation as well. So, and based on that, you have to actually come up with the models or the solutions, right? So these are typically from the banking domain. Now, if I go to the actuary part of it, actuaries are also are those who decides the insurance premium. So they look after the data of claims, the past claims, and the kind of claims, and they come up with the insurance premium, or they regulate that, right? There are there are insurance models also. So for those developments also we need actuaries, right? So which is also a quite exciting field. Now, apart from that, a fairly new, I mean, it's a mix of new and traditional. So which we call quants, right? So who are quantitative analysts. So if you look at if you look at abroad, like maybe New York, or let's say even Singapore, right? We have quite a good percentage of statistical analysts are working as quant analysts, right? Where they will actually look at or let's say maybe come up with mathematical models to price financial instruments and manage risks. So earlier, if you talk about the traditional quants, they used to work with traditional data. They didn't used to apply so much of machine learning or deep learning. But that phase is also that particular domain is also quite developing now. They are actually supposed to use more and more machine learning and advanced algorithms to actually come up with better prediction, right? So that's pretty much what covers the banking and insurance. Now, if I go to the FMCG, which is actually fast-moving consumer goods, there, definitely market research analysts are definitely required. So where they will frequently require such market analysts to come and look at their data and come up with solutions, come up with pricing as well as offers. And then maybe actually the analysts might be required to do market basket analysis as well and come up with recommendations, right? So recommendation engine that they might have to build recommendation engine. So that's one of the part. Then there would be inventory management, which is also quite interesting, right? So if you can imagine a company like Amazon, right, or let's say Flipkart, how they manage their inventory, which product is actually is in high demand, how to stock up. So these require a detailed, very detailed analysis using big data, as well as a quite comprehensive and advanced techniques to be applied, right? So for those, that's also another option, which is actually the the inventory management or inventory analysts. Then there are supply chain analysts, which would be actually a subset of that, right? And similarly, for if you actually want to go for product management, right? We can also do that. I mean, from being a statistician or coming from the statistics or data science background, if you actually want to manage product, it's possible actually, because currently more and more industries and fintechs are going towards data-driven product decisions, or product, let's say, crafting the product in a data-driven way. So that is also quite a good vertical to look at. I actually missed about talking about fintechs. Fintechs are also quite and as you can see, most of the fintechs are actually nothing but data, and I mean recruiting nothing but data analysts, because their cost is very less. They don't have a very traditional system on banking. They don't actually need a lot of infrastructure in terms of their call centers, branches, ATMs. They don't need those. So they have the luxury to spend money on the data infrastructure or the data analysts. So you can be a blockchain analyst, or you can actually come up with your own blockchain model while working for that. You can be a quant as well in a fintech. So I think that's pretty much on these two domains. For pharmaceuticals, there are enough options. I mean, you can be a statistician, pharmaceutical statistician. Obviously, Devjit sir was also here, so I don't know. I might be actually not contribute as much as his knowledge was. So maybe pharmaceutical statistician is one of the domain where they need a lot of analysts to manage the clinical trial, drug development, quality control, all this. There would be a portion. There would be a certain vertical where they need a regulatory affairs specialist as well. So, which is also a very crucial role where they can, where the statistics actually can, statisticians and analysts can play a very vital role. So that's pretty much it. The other upcoming industries are actually ESG, which is actually on sustainability. So banks and financial institutions are looking for people who can actually work on those and come up with a tailored solution for sustainability as well. So that can be another vertical which budding statistician or data scientist can look at. Yeah, I think that's pretty much from my side. Don't know whether I have covered everything, but the on an overall this particular statistics and data science domain, the applications are huge, and it's not actually exhaustive whatever I've covered. Yeah, that's all from my side. Hello.
Yes, thank you very much.
Sure.
I think there's probably some network.
Apologies again. I'm back right now. Thank you for your answer, Pallab sir. Thank you for the extensive how the industry works. We'll now be moving on to Monami for her answer.
Yeah, hi. So given my job profile, I will now focus on the government sector mainly, because the other two have already been covered by the esteemed panelists. So if I start with I will prefer to start with the Indian Statistical Service. So here, after doing your graduation or post-graduation, one can apply, and there's an entrance examination conducted by UPSC. So it's mainly focused on the subject itself. So we have 4 papers, theoretical papers on statistics, and then we have general studies, English, all those stuff. Followed by the written examination. If one clears the written examination, there's an interview. It's conducted by UPSC again. So after So that's the first one on my list. The next one is obviously the Reserve Bank of India, which also includes only postgraduates in statistics in the departments of statistics and information management, that is DSIM. So that is responsible for collecting, analyzing, and disseminating the statistical data related to various aspects of the economy. So also, as you all must be aware of, that Niti Aayog, the S12 Planning Commission, they are employing statisticians as consultants for different policy research purpose, data analysis, and further, they are also planning some socioeconomic surveys. So, and those surveys are mostly outsourced. So, the planning part, the analysis, the data analysis part, they focus on. So, along with this Niti Aayog, we have the Institute of Applied Manpower Research, which conducts, they mainly focus on the manpower part of government, that is the employment. They recruit statisticians mainly for policy formulation and program planning in the field of employment and human resource development. So, this is so Niti Aayog is investing quite a few resources now in this, so both in terms of money and manpower. So apart from that, we have ICMR. So as you all must be knowing that ICMR, they are recruiting statisticians for research projects which are related to, say, public health, different medical research purposes and epidemiology, etc. Also, just like the central government setup that is here, say the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation deals with all the surveys and data related part, all the macro and microeconomic indicators of the economies, more or less they are released by us. So the similar mechanism is applicable to the states. So for each of the states and union territories, we have a Directorate of Planning or the Directorate of Economics and Statistics. So in each of this directorate, they hire statisticians for various departments, say health, education, agriculture, planning. Yeah, I missed one. Though we have an agricultural statistics program, that is the ISRI one. So they're also agricultural scientists. That's a very good option nowadays. So for so more or less. This is what I could think of as being from the government side. So these are the options that you all can explore. So that's it.
Thank you, Mom. Thank you for the wonderful insights in how the government works, and thank you to all the panelists for giving us insights about industry, academia, and the government. We'll be moving on to our final question. This question is for Dr. Basu, ma'am. Could you please elaborate on the importance of grant writing, and could you tell us on the resources and training programs for the same?
Yeah, actually, yeah, I'll give an overview, but I'm not an expert in grant writing. Sorry, Shanti and others. So I'll give an overview wise, there could be several types of grants. You could be writing some internal grants. Sometimes universities have small add-on budgets that you can have access to by writing in grant. I think those are more or less, more like a formality to, okay, you need a little bit more money, and so you can put up a grant, small 2-page document. At least this is what happens in some places. You could be writing government grants. Those are more competitive because basically you're competing against all good institutions at the national level. You could also be writing industry grants. Those are sometimes even more competitive because it could be more like if you're writing a grant for Google or Amazon, those are more at an international level. So I guess the internal grant is you just have to understand your internal dynamics of who are the people you're competing with. For the government grants, those are important. And, for me, well, those do add up to the amount of research funds that helps me in, recruiting people and, travels and so on. But, I'm not in a conventional biostat departments where they're very strict with, that you have to continuously demonstrate that this much of your salary comes from grant and so on. So I won't be able to comment on those aspects, and I haven't done grant trainings that helps me write grants. So but I think if you're working in a biostat domain, it's very important to talk to your supervisors and understand the dynamics and how to get yourself trained for those grants, access to those grants. So yeah, I think that'll be all.
Okay, thank you, ma'am, for your wonderful answer. And thank you everyone for this wonderful session. Since there are no questions on the chat box, we would like to wrap up the session. So we would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you for gracing us with your presence today. We would like to thank our sponsors, Caucus for Women in Statistics and Data Science, CWS, International Indian Statistical Association, IISA, Dr. Sayantee Jana, Dr. Devjit Biswas for gracing the session, our panelists, Ms. Monami ma'am, Mr. Pallab sir, and Dr. Pallavi Basu, and the audience for making this event possible with their enthusiastic efforts. A special shout out goes to the Zoom technical team member, Sayukta Sharma. She is from ICT Mumbai, for the smooth conduct of this event. And once again, thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Shanti. Thank you, Supriya. And how do I call you? Mayvazi? Is this right?
Maybe.
Mayvadi. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you to
thank you,
all our
Shanti,
esteemed
Supriya,
panelists.
So thanks. It was lovely to know you all, Dr. Basu, Mr. Bhattacharya.
Yeah. So Monami, where are you based? Are you in Delhi? Where are you based?
Yeah. Presently, I'm posted in Delhi. Yeah.
I see. Yeah. So we had to visit the CSO for the.
Sure.
It's called CSO, right? From ISI.
Yeah. Right now, it's again. Initially, we just changed the name a few years back, and now it's back to the Central Statistics Office.
I see.
So we're back here.
Nice. Cool.
Thank you to all our
Thank you, everyone.
panelists for taking time out of your hectic schedule to agree to do this panel. So hope to see you all, and take care. So we'll wrap up this session now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.